Hello, North Carolina students. I am Neftali, Outreach Manager at NCSCAA, the primary sponsor for College for North Carolina, also known as CFNC, the free service that helps students plan, apply, and pay for college. I am the host for the CFNC podcast, Get Graduation Ready! This is a podcast for North Carolina students where we'll talk about college and career exploration, financial aid, and workforce readiness. I am going to introduce our podcast producer, Alex Granados.
Hey everybody, this is Alex Granados. I'm Associate Director of Communications here at the State Education Assistance Authority, and I'm excited to get into some of your questions and get some answers from Neftali. So Neftali, how would you like to proceed?
If you would like to, Alex, you can ask the first question that we got from a student.
All right, so for our first question today, we have a student who's asking, how should we go about finding temporary careers during post-secondary school if we want to relate these temporary careers to our objective career? And so what I think the student's asking is, they're probably going into some specific profession, but they want to pick up a part-time job, and I want to make sure the two align so that all of the student's efforts are heading in the right direction. So what do you think, Neftali?
Yeah, I think a great thing for this student to do would be to visit the school's career center. So all schools are going to have a career center that helps students find internships, part-time work, things like that. They have connection with employers. And so this is going to be a great resource for students looking to connect their part-time work with their future career.
So fun fact about me and Neftali, but we both went to school to become journalists. And Neftali, did you go to the career center at all?
I did, because actually career centers, they do other things too. And I wanted to study abroad.
Okay.
And so I went there so that the advisors could let me know if I had taken enough credits or which credits I could take while studying abroad. So I went for that reason.
Well, I went to the career center a grand total of 0 times, which is probably why I ended up at a newspaper that became one of the only newspapers within its media chain to close 5 years later. So maybe if I'd gone to the career center, I would have picked better for my first job, but who knows? You want to go on to the second question?
Well, on that topic, I did want to say something else, and it's that another great resource are going to be professors. So if the student has a good relationship with one of the professors or multiple, they can ask them, because a lot of times they worked in the field and they have connections too. So always try speaking with your professors as well.
That's a very good point. So the way I got my first job was one of my professors arranged for me to talk to the editor of the newspaper and kind of smooth the road for me to get that job. So, because I also wasn't big on internships either, which, by the way, out there, if you're thinking about going into a profession, internships are a good way to get a leg up.
Definitely. I remember one of the ways I got my internship was through a professor and his connections, because I had the misfortune of lining up my internship the summer that COVID happened.
Oh, no.
And it was an in-person internship at a news station. And obviously, they canceled all the internships that they were going to be doing. But one of my professors, he actually reached out and he was able to connect me with someone that had an online paper. And so I was able to intern with them for that summer covering COVID. So yes, professors can be a great resource.
Look at that. Good job, Professor. All right, let's go on to our next question. So this student writes in and says, hi, I'm a high school student in the dual enrollment program who will receive my associate's degree in science upon graduation. Since I'll probably have the number of credits a junior would have when I start college, I was wondering if I'll have the abilities that a junior would have, or if I would still be considered a freshman. For example, some colleges require freshmen to live on campus. If I were to go to a college with this requirement, would I be exempt because of the junior credits I would have? Thanks. And just a quick note, the dual enrollment program is when a student in high school can also take college classes at the same time. And so they often graduate already well into their college career, and that's kind of the situation of the student. So what do you think, Naftali?
Thank you for reading that question, Alex. And yes, so you would be having junior status. Now, a few things that apply to this. I also had, not my associates, but I did have college credit going into my college career. And it did count towards it, but it was going to depend on the college. So if you're transferring with credits from a North Carolina community college to a North Carolina school, most likely those credits are going to transfer. Now, if you're thinking of going to a college that's out of state, that can vary. So it's very important to first make sure that all of your credits are going to transfer. So that's something that you can do by talking with the school, and they'll also most likely give you this information after you've been accepted. But yes, technically speaking, you would be coming into college as a junior. And as a junior, yes, you shouldn't have that requirement that a first year student would have of having to live on campus, but the college could have the requirement of where instead of it being all incoming first year students to being all incoming new students. And so you would still have to live on campus, although you aren't a freshman.
Yeah. So I transferred from a community college to UNC Chapel Hill, 25 years ago now, which is crazy. And things were a little different back then, but, I came on as a junior and I just got a place off campus to live in. But, in the intervening time, the state has kind of created these agreements with the colleges and the community colleges to make the transfer of credits more kind of standardized. So it's a lot easier than when I went. I had to work really carefully with an advisor and make sure the classes I took would transfer, which is probably still a good practice regardless, because you never know exactly what your situation is.
Yes, definitely, Alex. And another thing to consider for this student is that there might be other requirements that are still going to apply, not just maybe the living on campus one, but something that all students are going to need to do is register for orientation. So this is really important because you get to see the campus, you get to learn about all the resources they offer students, and you're also going to get to register for classes. So it's really important that you don't dismiss those emails letting you know your next steps and what you need to do, because you might think that they only apply to freshmen coming in. So make sure that you're checking up with the email and signing up for all of those important details.
And we were talking a little bit before, you should also need to consider the parking situation if you're not going to live on campus. So I had to take the bus, which was a free bus in Chapel Hill, but it took quite a while to get to the school considering all the stops. And so eventually I got sick of it and started just trying to find spots on campus where I could park, and ended up getting a bunch of tickets. And that can end up being real expensive.
Yes, definitely. And another thing to think about is just the fact that a lot of colleges have limited parking, right? So you might not even be allowed to park on campus because of that. Oh, Alex, I have another thing about the bus. So I had to take the bus too because I lived off campus, and I only lived like 2 miles off campus. So it was a really short, like 15 minutes bus drive. But something I didn't think about was how crowded those buses were. So, oh my goodness, it was absolutely insane. We were all just like sardines in there, super squished, very hot. And then when COVID happened, it was just so empty afterwards. It felt really weird. But that's just another thing to think about is if you're riding the bus, it's going to be one crowded bus. So make sure that you like people.
All right. Great question. Great answer. We've got some of this information out of the way, and so I want to take a quick break to have a fun little game. So Naftali tasked me with finding something fun to do for kind of a middle segment. So what I have here is a series of trivia questions related to colleges. And the way I'm going to play this game is I'm going to ask Naftali and see if she knows the answers. And if you're playing at home, you can do so as well. And so my first question, Naftali, is Famous people who attended this school include Will Ferrell, Neil Armstrong, and Sophia Bush. Is it A, Yale University, B, the University of Southern California, C, Boston College, or D, Northwestern University?
I am not sure. Let's see. I think it would probably be maybe Boston.
All right, let's see. So the famous people who attended that school, Will Ferrell, Neil Armstrong, and Sophia Bush, they all attended B, the University of Southern California. Yay! Good job, Neftali.
Well, that's not what I guessed. I guessed Boston.
Oh, whoops. I thought you guessed B. So Neftali guessed C, Boston College, which is, boo, the wrong answer. Try harder next time, Neftali. All right, this one's an easy one. Before transferring to Columbia, President Barack Obama was enrolled at this institution. Is it A, the University of Hawaii, B, Occidental College, C, UCLA, or D, George Washington University?
Well, I don't know for sure the answer, but I'm going to do my best guess based on the fact that I personally have always wanted to go to Hawaii.
Okay.
So I'm going to guess Hawaii.
I'm afraid no, you were wrong again, Neftali.
What?
It is Occidental College. Better luck next time. Let's do one more. Prince William and Kate Middleton met at this UK university. Is it A, the University of Oxford, B, the University of Cambridge, C, the University of St. Andrews, or D, the University of Edinburgh? What do you think?
I am going to go with Oxford.
Oxford. A, the University of Oxford is your final answer.
Well, now you're making me second guess, so I'm not sure anymore.
Well, do you want to change your answer?
No. Oxford is.
Oxford University is correct.
Yay!
And you win the prize, which is you get to answer a few more questions.
Sounds good.
Okay, so let's get back to the questions. So I have a third question for you. This student writes in and says, when you get into college, how are you going to manage all of the stress and challenges that you may face?
That is a great question. I think we all understand that college is challenging, and it can bring a lot of stress. But one of the good things is that schools are aware of this, right? And so they do things to try to help students. Like many colleges have a student support center or services where they offer mental health resources for students. But there's also, if you're struggling with your classes and that's what's bringing you stress, there are tutoring centers that students can get help with whatever subject they're struggling with. Alex, did you use any of these centers while you were in college?
No, but I wish I had, because I found college to be a very stressful time. I was just never someone who was very good at taking advantage of the services that were being offered. Wish I could have it all to do over again and go back and tell myself that there is help out there if you want it. So
definitely. I can understand that. I know sometimes students can be afraid of going to some of these centers. So I did go to the tutoring centers when I was in college, and everyone there was so friendly. So that's, if you're worried about whether people are going to judge you for going to these centers and seeking help, don't worry about that. Everyone's usually very, very friendly and excited to help you. So that's one resource. Another thing that I wanted to mention was using the library. A lot of times there's study groups, and that was something that I did in my classes. So we would partner up with a few of the people taking the course, and we would study together, so that way we knew that if we had questions, we could ask one another, we could share notes, compare notes. So that's another thing to do.
All right, great answer. So let's go into one more question.
Well, I have another thing that maybe even, although you didn't seek out services for help, maybe you found this to help you distress.
Okay, let's hear it.
Football games.
Football games.
Yes, I think another way to also distress, but still feel support from others and It's going to be socializing. Just also enjoy your experience while you're in college. Academics are, of course, the number one reason you're there, and they need to be prioritized, but it's okay to also have fun. And I loved going to football games with my friends. So, Alex, did you go to football games?
So I feel like I'm painting a not very pretty picture of my college going career because I did not go to one single football game or any other sport event the entire time I was at school, which is particularly sad when you consider that I graduated in 2005, which was the year that UNC won the, I want to say, NCAA championship, maybe the ACC. I don't know because I don't follow sports, as you can see. So, again, wish I had taken advantage of the college services and opportunities more than I did. So I guess kids, learn from my lesson what not to do. Take advantage of everything that's offered.
Okay, well, that is great advice, Alex.
All right. Well, you wanna go ahead and hear one more question?
Yes, let's do it.
All right. So this student writes, how do you find scholarships that you have a chance of winning? Do you have any recommendations for essay scholarships as well?
Yes, so scholarships are very important. We know that they help students make paying for college more manageable. And the very first thing that I always recommend is for students to look for local scholarships. And so we all hear of the big national scholarships, but those are very competitive, right? So although you want to apply to those to make sure you at least give yourself a chance of getting them, you also want to look for scholarships that are less competitive. And local ones are going to give you that opportunity of only, being up against people in your community. So that's a lot less than a national scholarship. So some tips to look for local scholarships are going to be to look at your counselor or college advisor. They're going to know if there are any school specific scholarships that are for the students at your school or your county, things like that. So make sure that you're checking with them. That's very important. And then another place to look is if your community has any local chapters of any organization. So if you're interested in marketing, see if there's any marketing organization in your community that offers scholarships. That's going to be great as well.
Great. I'm trying to think. Oh, you should also consider checking out cfnc.org and checking out our scholarship search function. It helps you search scholarships available to you here in North Carolina.
That is a great point, Alex. And another thing too that I wanted to mention is going to be on the second portion of that question regarding essays. And so when it comes to writing essays, you want to make sure that you are highlighting certain skills. For example, you want to show them that you're committed to your education. You want to share that you're involved in your community. You want to share, volunteer experience or clubs and organizations that you participate in, just to show them that you're serious about this and that, you're not going to drop out of college if they were to offer you this scholarship and, that money be wasted when it could have gone to another student. So those are some of the skills and characteristics that you want to show them. Now, when it comes to actual essay writing, you don't have to write a new essay for every single scholarship. A lot of times the scholarships are going to have similar prompts and questions. And so what you can do is see from other essays that you've written if there are portions of that would be useful to share with this. And then you can just re-edit and change it around. But you don't have to always start from scratch. I know that's something that worries students, is having to write too many scholarship essays.
Yeah, and you guys don't know how good you have it. Back in my day, we had to write out essays by hand, and we had to walk to school uphill both ways in the snow to get there. I'm just kidding. We had computers. I'm not that old. But great advice, Neftali. Thank you so much, and thank you everybody who has submitted questions. We're going to be soliciting more questions. You can look for links to where you can submit those questions on Instagram at mycfnc and on Facebook at College for North Carolina. And of course, you can look for all of our resources on how to plan, pay, and apply for college at cfnc.org. And Neftali, you want to tell everybody who they've been listening to?
Yes, this is CFNC's podcast, Get Graduation Ready.